Hello everybody, my name is Mario5514 and welcome back to another Splatoon Talk video. In this video we're going to be looking back at some of the weapon kits from the Splatoon 1 era, specifically the shooters. Keep in mind we're only looking at the fully automatic shooters, and the blasters and the semi-autos or the weapons that have burst fire are going to be excluded from this list. And we're going to be ranking them or grading them on their style and power, and they're both going to be out of 10, making it a total of 20 points. And with that, let's get started. First up is the Splattershot Jr. with Splat Bomb and Bubbler. This is a basic weapon you start off with in the game, and everybody's got to start somewhere. It's a weapon that you start off with if you're playing the game for the very first time, and it has medium special depletion from what I found out on Inkopedia. Style-wise, this is a basic weapon that you start off with. Not much to see here. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, you have one of the basic sub-weapons and one of the best specials. Splat Bomb and Bubbler really go well with this weapon, as you will get splatted many times, so the Bubbler is going to help you with that. So I think power-wise, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 14 out of 20. Next up is the Custom Splattershot Jr. with Disruptor and Echolocator. It's basically the same thing as the Splattershot Jr., but with a different weapon kit and the same stats. I think Disruptor is something interesting. As we look at the Disruptor and the Toxic Mist, there's a huge difference. Disruptor was its own sub-weapon in Splatoon 1, and Toxic Mist was supposed to be like the Disruptor's replacement, with the Toxic Mist having a radius of where the sub-weapon landed, so your opponents could swim out of it when they get a chance. But with the Disruptor, if it lands on someone, it affects them for 5 seconds, slowing their run and swim speed, and depletes a small amount of ink within that time frame, allowing you to go after them when you throw the Disruptor at them. And I mean, Echolocator is not bad, but from what I found, according to ProChara, it's just something that you get free recon and a free tank refill without submerging. So I mean, the Echolocator is not very aggressive. It's more on the support-related side. Style-wise, I mean, it's just the Splattershot Jr. but with decals on it. So I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, I think the Disruptor carries this weapon very good, as the Echolocator is not very aggressive, as it's just a special to get recon of where your opponents are. And you're not the only person to see them, as your teammates see them as well. It also comes with light special depletion. So I think power-wise, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 14 out of 20. Next up is the Splattershot. Now we have one of the better weapons of the in the game, with Burst Bomb and Bomb Rush. I mean, Burst Bomb is not bad, considering the fact that the comboing capabilities it has really makes it a good sub-weapon to have. And not only that, the Burst Bombs don't use much ink as all the other subs do. So you can throw 2 Burst Bombs while you end up having to throw only 1 Splat or 1 Suction Bomb. Not only that, Bomb Rush is not bad for the Splattershot, considering the fact this is another beginner weapon that you eventually could learn faster and faster, more than the Splattershot Jr. Style-wise, Splatoon 1 has the best weapon design styles for the shooters, as well as for all the other weapons in the game. So for style, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, I mean, Bomb Rush is not bad, but it's more of an annoyance than it is aggressive. But I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 15 out of 20. Next up is the Tenatech Splattershot with Suction Bomb and Inkzuka. Now we're talking one of the better weapons of the game, and it's one of the best as well. You have one of the most powerful sub-weapons and one of the best, and you also have one of the best specials in the game, Inkzuka. But the only drawback that this weapon has is it has heavy special depletion, meaning that your ink tank or your special weapon gauge is going to be reduced by 75%. Then with light special depletion only depleting 25%, and medium only depleting 50%. And Inkzuka is 220p, so it's going to be a huge pain to charge up. and you can fire it as many times as you can before the timer runs out, which is the one cool thing I like about it. It's just difficult. It's just going to be a pain charging it up because from what I found out, you can only use it like 2 times per round. And I think the reason Nintendo made it 220p was that it was supposed to be, they were afraid that it was going to be like a special that people would spam like crazy, so they made it 220p. And yeah, I found out, according on Inkopedia, the Inkzooka originally was 200p before Nerf made it 220p. So yeah, I think it was like 2.0 or 2.2 that Nintendo nerfed it in 2015 or 2016. So that's a bit of a pain. I mean, style-wise, it's the same thing as the regular Splattershot, but with the Tenatech logo sticker on the side of the tank. So I'm still gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, you have one of the best sub-weapons and one of the best specials. What else isn't there to like? I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the Wasabi Splattershot with Splat Bomb and Ink Strike. This is the best weapon in the game, one of them. In fact, it's the crown jewel of Splatoon 1, as it has medium special depletion, you have one of the best sub-weapons, and you have one of the best specials. I think on Inkopedia or according to the Squid Research Labs, they classified the Ink Strike as a weapon of mass destruction. And I can safely say the Ink Strike in Splatoon 1 is much better than the triple Ink Strike in Splatoon 3. Style-wise, the Wasabi Splattershot has the best color scheme with its design, and the dark green, lime green, and neon yellow style on it really just makes it pop, as well as it gives it that wasabi color to it that we see, as well as with the wasabi sticker on the side. So style, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Power-wise, this is something that you need to take account of. It has medium special depletion with one of the best specials and one of the best subs. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for a near perfect score of 19 out of 20. This is the best weapon right here. Next up is the NZAP 85 with Splat Bomb and Echolocator. This is a weapon that's a very interesting one, as well as a very unique weapon, as it is really just it's a fast shooting shooter, but it has reduced damage and has a shorter firing range than the Splattershot. But I mean, but it has a Echolocator, which is 200p, and it's really just a free way to get a free recon and a free tank refill when you're firing your weapon. So when you deploy it, you can just continue firing your weapon like you already submerged ahead of time. Style-wise, the NZAP 85 is based off, it's a recreation of a real-life accessory from the Nintendo Entertainment System from the mid to late 1980s. I like this style. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, I mean, Splat Bomb is the only thing that's carrying it, if you look. Echolocator is just not very aggressive. It's more of a support-related special. But I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the NZAP 89 with Sprinkler and Ink Strike. I don't know why Nintendo did this, but we have it. They gave NZAP Sprinkler. Why would you do this? This is kind of bad. Sprinkler kind of hurts it. It kind of kills it. But I mean, style-wise, the NZAP 89 is based off of the real-life accessory for the Nintendo Entertainment System, like the NZAP 85. And in fact, it's also within accordance from a federal law that was passed in 1988, which states that all toy guns have to have an orange tip or an orange exterior, which is, according to Sheldon, the NZAP 89 was changed, exterior was changed for legal reasons. So yeah, that's a bit of a nice reference with real-life history right here. So style-wise, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Power-wise, the only thing that kills it is the Sprinkler. Ink Strike is what really carries it. But I'm going to give it I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Yeah, the Sprinkler just really hurts it. Next up is the NZAP 83 with Point Sensor and Kraken. This is a very unique weapon, as it's also one of Sheldon's picks. It's also one of the shooters that we have that is given Kraken, like one of the faster firing weapons that has Kraken. Style-wise, it's a real-life accessory for the family computer drive, which was a console that Nintendo released back in the early to mid 1980s, which the FCD, the family computer drive, was a Japanese exclusive console that was only released in Japan, never in the United States. So it's a very nice color, maroon, but I kind of prefer the NZAP 89. The orange is what really makes it stand out. So I mean, style-wise, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, you have point sensor. From what I heard from ProChar, is weaker, but you also have one of the most broken specials, Kraken, and it also has medium special depletion, unlike I think it was light special depletion with the other NZAPs. So I'm gonna give this a I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 actually. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for a score of 17 out of 20. Next up is the Splattershot Pro, a Splat Bomb and Ink Strike. It basically has the same weapon kit as the Wasabi Splattershot, but it's on a weapon that has longer range but has a reduced firing rate, and it also has increased damage. I mean, style-wise, Splattershot Pro is not bad, as well as if we look in the later games, the detail in the weapon is more in-depth, so you could see how much the Splattershot Pro has changed compared to its weapon kit. But I mean, Splat Bomb and Ink Strike is not bad. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I mean, for the style, it's an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, Splat Bomb and Ink Strike works for this weapon. I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the Forge Splattershot Pro. This was the only weapon that Forge made or was in collaboration with Forge, with point sensor and Inkzuka. And yeah, we have another Inkzuka weapon, which is Inkzuka's 220p, but it has light special depletion, unlike the heavy special depletion that we see with the Tenatech Splattershot. So I think Forge Splattershot Pro having Inkzuka is very interesting. Style-wise, color scheme is actually not bad. It's kind of it's slightly better than the regular Splattershot Pro. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 though. Power-wise, you have 220p Inkzuka instead of 200p Ink Strike, or 180p Ink Strike. I kind of prefer Ink Strike more than Inkzuka. I mean, I prefer Inkzuka over Ink Strike any other day. I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 15 out of 20. I mean, the point sensor is kind of a pain. Next up is the Berry Splattershot Pro, a Suction Bomb and Bomb Rush. This was another weapon that we wish we could have returning into Splatoon 3. There is a possibility we could get the third weapon kits to return in Splatoon 3. It's just not very likely though, so we're gonna have to wait and see. But for this weapon, its style, very good. The colors, the neon colors that match with this really make it pop and stand out than the regular and Forge variant. So I'm gonna give it style a 9 out of 10. Power-wise, we have Bomb Rush with our Suction Bomb. I mean, Suction Bomb is not bad. I wonder how that would look in play. Even though we did have the bomb launcher in Splatoon 2, though. So I mean, with Bomb Rush, you just throw your sub as many times as you can, as much as you want before it runs out. So I think for this, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the Sploosh-O-Matic with Squid Beacon and Killer Whale. Yeah, one of the worst weapons of all. I mean, it does have light special depletion, and the Killer Whale is 160p. But I mean, you have Squid Beacon on it. And not only that, the drawback with Sploosh-O-Matic is that in Splatoon 1, it moves slower than what we've seen in the later games, according to ProChara. And this weapon only works in close quarter combat, which is kind of a shame, but I mean, it's looking at it really just works close range. So you have to get close up into your opponent's face for it to actually work. Style-wise, it's supposed to look like it was made in a factory. And yeah, with the pressure gauge on the side of it, really just tells you that it looks like it's made in a factory. So for its style, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, we have Squid Beacon and Killer Whale. We do see Squid Beacon and Killer Whale 5.1 return or make its appearance for the Neo Sploosh, which is kind of painful, which is a throwback to Splatoon 1. So I am going to give it for power, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 for a score of 13 out of 20. Yeah, it's just not very good. Next up is Neo Sploosh with Point Sensor and Kraken. It's basically the same weapon kit as the NZAP 83, but on a weapon that only works in close range, and has light special depletion, compared to medium for the NZAP 83. I think Point Sensor is interesting for this weapon, as well as Kraken. And remember, Kraken is very broken, as you are impervious to all forms of damage, and no one can hurt you at all, next to Bubbler. So I think style-wise, it's the same thing as the regular Sploosh, but with Neo's logo or their brand on the side of it. It's basically another factory-made weapon that just has Neo's logo on it. But I'm still going to give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, Point Sensor is just not very good. I mean, it just marks where your opponents are. Kraken is what really carries it, though. I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 14 out of 20. Next up is Splooshmatic 7 with Splat Bomb and Ingzuka. And hear me out. Ingzuka may be 220p, but guys, it's a Sploosh with Splat Bomb and with one of the best specials in the game, and with light special depletion. And not only that, how is it that all the other weapons that have Ingzuka have either light or medium special depletion, while the Tanatech Splattershot got the short end of the stick with heavy special depletion? But I mean, Splat Bomb really compensates the Splooshmatic 7's firing rate or its range, and the Ingzuka really helps it fire from a distance. So I mean, it really helps this weapon a lot. So style-wise, I kind of like the Splooshmatic 7's color scheme, as it has a kind of like a maroon type or a red hue to it. So for style, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. Power-wise, you have one of the best weapon kits of all time. Splat Bomb and Ingzuka, which is what we saw the Splattershot have in its E3 demo back in 2014. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for power for a score of 17 out of 20, which is not bad for the Splooshmatic 7. Next up is the Splashmatic with Suction Bomb and Bomb Rush. It has the same weapon kit as the Berry Splattershot Pro, but on a weapon that has a very fast firing rate, but it has a reduced firing range and has less damage. But with the Splashmatic, you have perfect firing accuracy. Even when you're jumping, its accuracy stays the same, which is also what we see in the later games. Style, it's the same thing as the Sploosh. It's factory made, but it has pinpoint accuracy even when you're jumping. So I'd give this a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, we have Bomb Rush with Suction Bomb. I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10 for a score of 14 out of 20. Next up is Neo Splash with Burst Bomb and Ingzuka. We got one of the better weapon kits for the Splash. And yeah, Burst Bomb and Ingzuka is what we see the Carbon Roller have, the regular Carbon Roller. The Deco has Seeker and Bomb Rush, which I'll get to in another video. Yeah, it has light special depletion, which is another weapon we see have light special depletion compared to the Tanatech Splattershot that has heavy special depletion. Style-wise, it's the same thing as the regular Splash, but with Neo's logo on the side. 7 out of 10. Power-wise, Burst Bomb and Ingzuka work very well together. You can give it a 9 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the Aerospray with Seeker and Ingzuka. Now, a lot of people are asking, was there a problem with Seeker? It basically functioned like a curling bomb and an auto bomb together. So it was like 2 subs in 1 from what we see in Splatoon 2. But according to ProChara, this sub-weapon used, hear me out, it used 90% of your ink tank. Yeah, according to ProChara, that was what it did. And I mean, it functioned like a curling bomb and also as an auto bomb, as it's able to go after where your opponents are. It just wasn't very accurate as the auto bomb is. But I mean, it was like you could say it's like the prototype curling bomb that functions like an auto bomb. And yeah, and having Inkzuka with it really compensates the Aerospray's short range, as the Inkzuka is able to fire from a distance. And keep in mind, the Inkzuka is the second longest ranged weapon in the game, with E-Leaders firing up to 7 lines away, and the Inkzuka can fire up to 6.5 lines. So yeah, Inkzuka is a huge rival as well as a huge threat to any E-Leader player. I think for style, the Aerospray is based off of a real-life piece of equipment that we use to paint the side of your house or your car. So for style, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, you have Seeker and Inkzuka. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 15 out of 20. Next up is the Aerospray RG with Ink Mine and Ink Strike. Okay, we have another shooter that has Ink Strike, but with a different sub-weapon, Ink Mine. According to ProChar, the Ink Mine can only be used once compared to the later games, which can be used twice. And the Ink Mine is just so bad from what I've heard. In Splatoon 1, after 10 seconds of inactivity, the thing blows up. Even after your opponent steps on it, it isn't until later that it blows up. So there's a guarantee that you're not going to get hit by it. And you also have Ink Strike, which I think is not bad for the Aerospray, considering the fact that we have Inkzuka on the Aerospray MG, which is another story. And it has light special depletion, like the Aerospray MG, that has light special depletion on a 220p Inkzuka. I mean, style. The gold is not bad for the Aerospray. I mean, it's just the same thing as the Aerospray MG, but with a different color scheme. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, the only thing that's carrying the Aerospray is the Ink Strike, to be honest. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the Aerospray PG with Burst Bomb and Kraken. Finally, we have a different weapon outside of Finally, we broke out of the point sensor Kraken kit. Burst Bomb really works with the Aerospray, and Kraken is the broken special that everyone likes at 200p. And this weapon has light special depletion compared to the medium special depletion with the NZAP 83. But the Neo Sploosh shares the light special depletion like the Aerospray, but with a different sub-weapon. Style-wise, I kind of like the copper look as well as the hammered out look near the nozzle of the Aerospray. Nice touch to it. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Power-wise, Burst Bomb and Kraken is a very good kit for it. So I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10 for a score of 17 out of 20. Next up is the .52 Gal with Splash Wall and Killer Whale. This was a weapon that a lot of people would have used, as it had a good firing rate, middle of the road like the Splatter Shot, but it dealt more damage than the Splatter Shot. And it has medium special depletion, which makes you think that this weapon is powerful than you think. It also has a Killer Whale, which is 160p, same as the Sploosh-matic, but the .52 Gal is better than the Sploosh. Style-wise, .52 Gal is actually not bad. I mean, it kind of has the resemblance of... we have the resemblance of a tank that we see in any other place in life. And, of course, in the styles for the .52 Gal, we see the stiff buttstock that you see stiff in the first 2 games before it looks like it's loose in Splatoon 3. Same aiming sight that we see as well. So for style, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, we have Splash Wall and Killer Whale. Splash Wall works well, while the Killer Whale allows you to deploy at an area where you're able to splat anyone that's caught within it. And Splash Wall just helps you protect you as you're deploying your Killer Whale, so you're not out in the open. Because when you use your Killer Whale, you're out in the open until you deploy it. So I think with Splash Wall and Killer Whale really helps it out. So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for a score of 17 out of 20. Next up is the .52 Gal Deco with Seeker and Ink Strike. We have another Seeker weapon with Ink Strike. I mean, style-wise, it's the same thing as the .52 Gal, but with colored sequins all over it. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 still. Power-wise, we have Seeker and Ink Strike. Seeker using 90% of your ink tank, and Ink Strike being one of the best specials at 180p. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the .96 Gal with Sprinkler and Echolocator. This is one of the weapons that Sprinkler is that Sprinkler works well with, as the .96 Gal has a very slow firing rate, but it does heavy damage with its shots that it produces. In Splatoon 1, it originally did 62 damage until Nintendo nerfed it in like 2.7, which did 52 damage, which is kind of sad if you look at it, until it was buffed back to 62 in Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3, I think. Yeah, I think in Splatoon 3 it has 62 damage, once again. Style-wise, it's the same thing as the .52 Gal, but with an extended barrel on it. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, Sprinkler and Echolocator works with this weapon, as Echolocator allows you to see where your opponents are, so you know when to call your shots, as the .96 Gal has a very slow firing rate, and its shots are not very accurate. And the Sprinkler really helps it charge its special faster, so I could see this being helpful for it. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 14 out of 20. Next up is the .96 Gal Deco with Splash Wall and Kraken. This is one of the better weapon kits in Splatoon 1. Style-wise, it's the same thing as the .96 Gal, but with colored sequins like the .52 Gal Deco. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, Splash Wall and Kraken works so well with this weapon that it's just like you're basically going in hot. But it has heavy special depletion, so that's a huge problem. But power-wise, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for a score of 17 out of 20. Next up is the Jet Squelcher with Splash Wall and Ink Strike. Considering the fact the Jet Squelcher, from what I've heard in Splatoon 2, which I have played, was in a very unhealthy spot, as it currently has Angle Shooter and Ink Vec. In Splatoon 2, it had Toxic Mist and Tenta Missiles, which I think it was Jet Squelcher at its finest. And Splash Wall and Ink Strike really helps the weapon out, as you're able to defend yourself or protect yourself with the Splash Wall, as well as you're able to deploy your Ink Strike behind your Splash Wall, allowing you to have time to deploy it and use your main weapon after you deploy it. Style-wise, the Jet Squelcher is supposed to be modeled after a pressure washer, according to Inkipedia. So for style, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, Splash Wall and Ink Strike paired with the Jet Squelcher's long range but reduced damage output really makes this weapon a go-to for someone who wants to stay on the back lines with the chargers but still want to be aggressive. And it also comes with light special depletion. So for power, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the custom Jet Squelcher with Burst Bomb and Kraken. We have another Burst Bomb Kraken kit outside of the Aerospray PG. You have, style-wise, it's the same thing as the Jet Squelcher, but with the custom logo sticker on the bottom of the weapon. So, 7 out of 10. Power-wise, Burst Bomb and Kraken work well with this weapon, which we wish this weapon had once again. But in Splatoon 3, it has Toxic Mist and Ink Storm. But I'd still give this a 9 out of 10 for a score of 16 out of 20. Next up is the Dual Squelcher, which is a Splatoon 1 exclusive. Yeah, it's a main weapon that's exclusive to Splatoon 1. In Splatoon 2, it eventually became the Dually Squelchers. The Dual Squelcher has Splat Bomb and Echolocator, similar to the NZAP 85. I mean, style-wise, the red is supposed to look. The red helps you see which one is the Dual Squelcher and which one is the Jet Squelcher. And according to Inkipedia, the bottom nozzle on the Dual Squelcher is non-functional in the game, so you only have the top nozzle firing. Style-wise, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Power-wise, it's the same thing as the NZAP 85. I'm still going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 15 out of 20. And finally, the custom Dual Squelcher. with Squid Beacon and Killer Whale. I think Squid Beacon is helpful for the dual squelcher as well as Killer Whale, as you're able to keep yourself at a distance and then deploy the Killer Whale when you have a chance and continue firing your weapon after you deploy it, as the dual squelcher has the same stats as the jet squelcher but with a different color scheme and with 2 nozzles instead of 1. So style-wise, same thing as the dual squelcher with the custom logo sticker on the bottom. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Power-wise, Squid Beacon and Killer Whale kind of make it okay, but Killer Whale is kind of carrying it. I would like to see like a different sub than just Squid Beacon on it, but I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for a score of 14 out of 20. And that's it. That is all of the shooter kits that we have from the Splatoon 1 era. Thank you all for watching. If you guys like the video, be sure you subscribe and don't forget to leave a like on the video. If you want to see more videos like this, just send a comment below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. And until then, stay fresh.